This winter has been unusually warm and dry in central Illinois. Will we see more of the same in the new year?
We expect to go through the rest of the winter on the warm side.
And a powerhouse winter storm next week could end that dry spell. That story coming up on WGLT's Sound Ideas. Good evening, I'm John Norton. Also on today's show, winter weather can make potholes more common. The town of Normal has ramped up its street resurfacing to address that problem.
People have talked regularly about potholes and the like, and we feel like we're making very good progress on our pavement preservation.
And a legal expert highlights some of the new laws that have taken effect in Illinois, including several that support workers' rights. Those stories follow a Bloomington Normal News update just ahead. This is Sound Ideas on 89.1 WGLT and WGLT.org, part of the NPR network.
Support for WGLT comes from Bloomington Normal Audiology. Hear My Story continues with local patient Paul Brandt.
So I just went without them for all those years. I talked to somebody who had recently gotten hearing aids and talked about the fact that they were connected to the TV. And so that kind of prompted me to try it again.
Paul's full story can be found at bnaudiology.com.
From the campus of Illinois State University in Normal, this is WGLT's news magazine, Sound Ideas. Good evening, I'm John Norton. As the new year kicks off, the town of Normal is looking forward to more capital projects, as well as more equipment purchases and more economic activity. In this interview with WGLT's Charlie Schlenker, City Manager Pam Reece says last year was a very busy one, too.
Those individuals that were around town all through the summer during construction season probably were relatively inconvenienced by road closures and having to divert their typical routes. We've got a lot that we can talk about. East College Avenue was resurfaced. That was a busy and comprehensive project. We had Main Street shut down for a good part of the year, or at least a portion of Main Street shut down. In about 7 months, our contractor was able to install about a mile's worth of new water main. That was a very complex project. That's complete. And overall, we invested about $11.5 million in capital projects, which is more than typical. And we were in a good financial position to be able to do that.
How much more than typical?
I could probably compare this year to next year in terms of our plans for 2024, and that a little more easily than looking back at what 2022. This year was the beginning. 2024, during the warmer months of construction, people will see a lot more happening. For example, in this year that we've just completed, we did a major street resurfacing program to the tune of about $5.5 million. In 2024, we're looking a little over $6 million of investment in street resurfacing. So we're really proud of our pavement preservation efforts. People have talked regularly about potholes and the like, and we feel like we're making very good progress on our pavement preservation. So 2024 will be same show, different year. It'll be different streets, but lots of construction happening.
How much do you plan on spending next year for capital?
When we talk about our community investment plan, which is really our focus on capital projects, last year we had a $175 million plan over a 5-year period. Looking forward, we now have a $209 million capital investment plan. So we continue over the next 5 years to invest more in our capital needs. And that includes not just pavement and roads, that includes water mains, sewer mains, park improvements, as well as, just maintaining our public buildings.
In the next 5 years, are there things that stand out as unusual?
Well, the notable items are things we've been waiting a while for. Fire station number 2. In 2023, we were able to award a contract for design and construction of our new Station 2, which will be located at the Shepherd and Hershey Road intersection. Later in 2024, we'll be in a position to open that station. One other item is for those that enjoy using our aquatic centers. In 2023, we had a contractor selected to improve the water slides. We're ready to open in 2024 with new refurbished water slides at both Fairview and Anderson pools. I think people have noticed that they look fresh, they're ready to go, so we'll be eagerly anticipating, May 24 of the new aquatic season. The other things that maybe are a little bit out of the ordinary would be continued investment in our parks. One of the projects for 2024 is a skate park at Fairview Park. So we'll start working on planning that. What does that look like?
One of the things that town has emphasized historically is trying to leverage local spending into state and federal grants. You are doing that next year with the West College Avenue rebuild with some higher tier government funding. How does the entire 2023 look on that grant harvesting category?
We are celebrating successful grant awards in the amount of $5.3 million. That's over $5 million that have come in to help the town complete projects. Some are more notable than others. For example, the new Lucky Climber at the Children's Discovery Museum. Anyone that comes through Uptown in the evenings can enjoy the new Lucky Climber. It's well lit. It's a really neat amenity in Uptown Normal. Other things that have been awarded this year include grants in support of Fire Station Number 2, money for conducting safety studies, such as a pedestrian study around the Illinois State University campus. We're partnering with the Illinois State on that.
This is Sound Ideas. I'm Charlie Schlenker. We're talking with the City Manager of Normal, Pam Reece. Are there other wins in terms of recognition that the town would like to emphasize?
Our departments have been very successful in achieving recognition, and they do great work. For example, the Children's Discovery Museum has celebrated a national recognition from the Association of Science and Technology Centers for their work in community service and their STEM education efforts in partnership with Heartland Head Start and others. That's really great. The educators and the folks at the Children's Museum do an exceptional job in developing youth. Our water utility was recognized as best tasting water by the Illinois Potable Water Operators Association. So that's fun to celebrate as well. So we have a lot of things that we can be pleased with. I think one other notable item, before I forget, is really important. We have, as an organization, adopted an ADA transition plan where we're taking steps every year to improve our accessibility. LifeSil recognized the town of Normal and our ADA team as under an award called Do the Right Thing Award. And so we're really proud of our staff that works hard to improve our ADA accessibility and make improvements for all access.
Let's pivot back to the capital improvement plan. You talked about some of the infrastructure things. Let's talk about the equipment needs of the town. Over the next 5 years, you're planning to spend about $39 million on purchases related to vehicle and equipment needs. That seems like a lot of money. So what goes into that spending?
That $39 million includes the current fiscal year, because we have not yet finished our fiscal year, and the next 5 years of our budget. Things like equipment include fire trucks, fire engines, all the public works fleet vehicles, Normal Police Department squad cars. It's fleet. It is technology. It's equipment to keep the organization running. It's snowplows. Over the course of 5 years, that is a big dollar amount, but that does reflect increasing costs of heavy equipment and our ongoing planning to replace our equipment and our fleet when their life cycle is ended.
Data out from the Fed shows that inflation does seem to be receding as a major pressure. What are you anticipating over the next year or so on that front in price and cost increases?
Our cost of doing business is going up like every other organization. For fiscal year 24-25, what we think is going to happen is we hear there might be some leveling of inflation factors. We also hear that interest rates for borrowing might improve. We're hoping, if that's the case, that we'll be able to complete some economic development projects that maybe have been on hold because of financing.
Like what?
Some of the housing projects, some of the uptown development projects. If the market can support construction of these projects, we will be at the table and hopefully get work with developers to get these projects to the finish line.
For instance, Normal City Manager Pam Reece says the town approved more than 1,400 new housing units last year, many of which have not begun construction. Reece spoke with WGLT's Charlie Schlenker.
Hey, it's Layla Faldin. What you do in the morning helps set the tone for the rest of your day. Meditating can ease you in, keep you grounded and calm. Journaling may give you a sense of intention and purpose. And working out could add a boost of energy. If you want to feel balanced, informed, and connected to the world around you, here's another morning ritual for you. Listening to Morning Edition from NPR News. Every weekday, no yoga mats or weights required.
Wake up with Morning Edition. Weekday mornings on 89.1 WGLT.
Stories and conversations around Bloomington Normal and McLean County. This is WGLT's Sound Ideas. December was one of the warmest and driest on record in Bloomington Normal. Some days, it hardly felt like winter at all. Data from the National Weather Service show the average temperature last month was just over 38 degrees. That's the fourth warmest in the Twin Cities since record-keeping began in the late 19th century. For the year, Bloomington Normal ranked in the top 25% of warmest years. Peoria tied for its warmest year on record. The Twin Cities only got a trace of snow all month and is well below its average snowfall for the season. That could change, and in a big way as early as next week, but more on that in just a bit. Mike Albano is a meteorologist with the National Weather Service office in Lincoln. He tells WGLT's Eric Stock why the unusually mild winter stems from El Nino, which has ushered in warmer air from the Pacific.
We do happen to be in the midst of a moderate to strong El Nino. With that in mind, it's not uncommon for us to see warmer than normal temperatures through the winter. But December 2023, we just closed the books on. It was exceptionally warmer.
How long should we expect that trend to continue into 2024?
Well, I think long-term trends, we will expect the rest of the winter to fall a little bit warmer than what is considered normal from both a temperature standpoint, but also, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have less snow for the winter. But it's more of a temperature type global pattern that we're associating with the El Nino. So we expect to go through the rest of the winter on the warm side.
But we can look at temperature and snowfall totals differently then. There are different dynamics at play.
Yeah, I mean, just because we're above normal temperatures, that's what our forecast is for the remainder of the winter. You shouldn't necessarily correlate that with less snow. Now, that may well be the case with the more mild air mass in place. We have maybe more of a rain-snow mix, maybe more rain than snow. But there's always the possibility that we get that freak snowstorm that comes into place and can drop 6 to 10 inches to Peoria and Bloomington. Even in a strong El Nino year, that freak storm could still happen and put us about on par with where we should be on a snowfall basis from year to year.
And from what it sounds like, that could happen fairly soon. We'll get to that in a minute. But as you look at the snowfall totals and how they correlate with temperature or don't correlate, they are similar this year in that warmer temperatures have been accompanied by very low snow. We didn't get a white Christmas at all. Could this mean that we will end up just getting it later? It does seem that snow events are less common now in November and December, but now we're getting them well into the spring.
We did have a snowfall just after Thanksgiving time, November 25th, where the Peoria area did get a few inches of accumulating snow, but right now they're running about a 2-inch deficit for the winter. Bloomington did not get in on that post-Thanksgiving storm as much. They're running about a 5-inch deficit right now through the winter, but we could easily make that back in just one snowstorm.
And that snowstorm that you have alluded to could be coming next week. The National Weather Service has alerted us to what it calls an intense storm system that's expected to hit the Midwest next week. How bad could it get, and what are you looking at now as you anticipate this hitting our way?
Well, I think the main thing for folks to consider at this time range is that we're still a week out. The disturbance that we are tracking as it lies today, we're 7 days out, and this disturbance is about 5,500 miles away, located in the North Pacific, just northeast of Japan, really. So I mean, this disturbance can wobble back and forth, even 100 or 200 miles, and it would dramatically change our forecast. We see the models, we see what they're putting out, which is a very, very strong, some would call it a powerhouse winter storm system that would certainly bring impacts to a good chunk of the central U.S., Illinois included. But at this time, we're still not we're still not sure how bad is going to be for the local area. It'd be like standing at the St. Louis Arch and throwing an empty glass Coca-Cola bottle into the river and trying to figure out 7 days from now, where's that Coke bottle going to be in the Mississippi? So, our models certainly, they're getting better year after year, decade to decade, but the science still is not perfect.
So it does sound like that there will likely be some degree of intensity to this, just a matter of how intense it will be and where specifically it will land?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You want to know our honest snowfall forecast for the Peoria, Bloomington, Normal area right now?
Sure.
It's anywhere from just under a half inch up to about 10 inches. So that, people are going to hear that and think, wow, that is an absurd forecast. What a crazy hedge that is. But that is the most honest forecast. We're sitting 7 days away right now from the event. So but we do expect there to be snow. We just don't know how much quite yet.
That was National Weather Service meteorologist Mike Albano with WGLT's Eric Stock. Albano says meteorologists will likely have a much clearer picture of next week's potential winter storm in a few days. Weather Service has also scheduled its first public webinar on storm anxiety. That'll be January 25th, a Thursday night at 6 p.m. Albano says many people have anxiety about driving over snow or ice-covered roads, but the Weather Service gets a higher volume of concern calls over the threat of severe weather. That can include tornadoes, straight-line winds, and flooding. Albano says the best way to address anxiety about the weather is to prepare for it. This is Sound Ideas on WGLT. I'm John Norton. With the start of every new year comes a slate of new state laws. Tim Shelley from sister station WCBU spoke with Illinois Legal Aid Online Executive Director Terry Ross about a few you should know about.
The legislature passed a number of kind of workers' rights bills. This is, I think, the biggest one and the one that's getting the most attention, and probably the one that affects the most people, honestly. And it requires for every 40 hours of work that someone accrues an hour of time off. And they can start taking that time off as early as, I think, March 31st is the date, or 90 days following once they start a job. So under the existing laws, workers aren't guaranteed pay when they're taking time off for sick leave, illness, childcare, mental health, wellness, medical appointments and the like. So this really provides people with a little bit of a cushion who didn't have it before.
Does this also apply to people who maybe don't work the standard 40-hour work week, if I'm a part-time employee, let's say?
Yep. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you are working full-time or if you're working part-time. 40 hours, for every 40 hours you work, if it's over the course of a month, you get an hour paid leave.
And that's just an hour for whatever, like you said, childcare,
Mm-hmm.
mental health.
And you can use it for whatever you want. Yeah. If you want to go for a walk, right? Go build a snowman. You can do it.
Looking at it from the other side of the equation, I guess, for employers, what should employers know about this law in terms of implementing it and making sure they're, following the rules or the law correctly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would make sure if an employer isn't doing this already, and most of them certainly do, having employees do timesheets of some sort and tracking hours is going to be crucial, right? Because you'll want to be able to show if you are challenged, right? You should have a good, clear record of the hours worked and what the accrual process is, and when does it occur, and when the leave is taken, how that is also recorded.
One other law that actually has gotten a lot of attention, and it was sponsored by our state senator here in Peoria, Dave Kaler, is this protection for children social media influencers. Now, I think some people are probably right now scratching their heads like there's children that are social media influencers, but this is a real thing, and it's apparently enough of a problem that there was a law passed. What exactly is this?
Yeah, so this is the first kind of law in the country, right? So Illinois is the first in doing this. It basically establishes a private right of action for child influencers, right? So the law requires that any video creator, usually a parent, set aside part of the money from the videos for the child. This law goes into effect July 1, any videos with children on a family YouTube or TikTok channel or sponsored posts on Instagram applies. To get paid for the videos, you need to be under 16. At least 30% of the videos made by the video creator must have you, your likeness, name, photograph, etc. And then the videos need to make some money in some way, right? So there's actually some income being created.
Another thing which was kind of interesting here, there is a bill, Senate Bill 1913, and that would guarantee telehealth appointments for mental health treatment will be covered under Medicaid. Tell me a little bit about this and how that works.
Yeah, so I think the pandemic certainly increased our acceptance and the use of telehealth medicine just because we had to, right? And so I think there's a lot of positives for doing telehealth. People don't have to travel. It doesn't take as long, right? And not everything, of course, is should be done by telehealth, right? But there's an awful lot of things that can be, right? And this law is just ensuring that that providers, medical providers, get covered, that the patient is covered under Medicaid for those visits, because that hasn't always consistently happened.
That was Terry Ross from Illinois Legal Aid speaking with Tim Shelley of WCBU. Later this week on Sound Ideas, you'll hear from several Bloomington Normal business owners and hiring managers about how the new paid leave law is impacting their shops. And that's Sound Ideas today. WGLT's news magazine is made possible in part by Bloomington Normal Audiology. I'm John Norton. Story help today came from WGLT's Charlie Schlenker and Eric Stock and WCBU's Tim Shelley. Ryan Toohey edits Sound Ideas. This is 89.1 WGLT and WGLT.org, part of the NPR network.